Dr. Rebecca Stone pressed her face against the small window of the colony ship as it entered the atmosphere of Kepler 442b. The planet looked beautiful from space. Green forests covered most of the land. Blue oceans sparkled under the light of two suns. It seemed like the perfect new home for humans. Rebecca had spent 5 years planning this mission. She was the lead scientist for the first human colony on this distant world. Her team of 200 colonists included farmers, engineers, doctors, and soldiers. They carried everything needed to start a new life among the stars. Most important to Rebecca was her 8-year-old son, Tommy. The boy sat next to her, his nose also pressed against the window. His brown eyes were wide with excitement as he watched the alien world grow larger below them. "Mom, look at those mountains," Tommy said. "They're huge. Can we climb them?" Rebecca smiled and ruffled his dark hair. "Maybe when you're older, sweetheart. First, we need to build our new home." The ship shook as it hit the upper atmosphere. Captain Lisa Hayes spoke over the intercom from the bridge. "All passengers, please return to your seats. We are beginning our final descent to the landing site." Rebecca checked Tommy's safety harness one more time. Everything seemed normal. The computers showed green lights across all systems. The landing site looked clear of any dangerous weather. In 30 minutes, they would be walking on their new world. Then the ship lurched violently to one side. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the vessel. Red warning lights flashed in the passenger compartment. Rebecca grabbed Tommy's hand as their seats tilted at a sharp angle. "What's happening?" Tommy asked. His voice was calm, but Rebecca could see fear in his eyes. Captain Hayes's voice crackled. Over the intercom again, but this time she sounded worried. "We have a problem with the main engines. All passengers prepare for emergency landing procedures." The ship spun as it fell through the atmosphere. Rebecca looked out the window and saw pieces of the hull breaking away. Smoke poured from the engine compartments. The beautiful alien landscape rushed up toward them much too fast. "Hold on tight, Tommy," Rebecca said. She tried to keep her voice steady for her son's sake. The colony ship hit the ground with tremendous force. The impact threw Rebecca against her harness. Her vision went black for a moment. When she opened her eyes, smoke filled the passenger compartment. Sparks flew from broken electrical panels. People were screaming. Rebecca's head throbbed with pain, but she forced herself to focus. "Tommy? Tommy, are you okay?" Her son was unconscious, but breathing. A small cut on his forehead leaked blood. Rebecca quickly released both their harnesses and gathered Tommy in her arms. Around them, other colonists were doing the same thing, checking on their families and friends. The emergency exit doors hissed open. Smoke poured out into the alien air. Rebecca carried Tommy toward the nearest exit, following other survivors outside. The crash site was chaos. The colony ship had broken into 3 large pieces scattered across a wide valley. Fires burned in several sections. Colonists wandered around in shock, calling out names of missing loved ones. Dr. Marcus Webb, the colony's medical officer, set up a treatment area near a large boulder. Rebecca carried Tommy to him. "He hit his head during the crash," she told Marcus. "But he's breathing normally." Marcus examined the boy with his medical scanner. "Just a mild concussion. He should wake up soon. You did the right thing moving him away from the smoke." As if on cue, Tommy's eyes fluttered open. "Mom? What happened? Why does my head hurt?" "We crashed, sweetheart," Rebecca said, hugging him close. "But we're safe now." Captain Hayes appeared, her uniform torn and dirty. A bandage covered a cut on her left arm. "Dr. Stone, I need your help. We have 43 survivors, but we lost most of our supplies in the crash. The main computer systems are dead. We can't contact Earth or any of our other ships." Rebecca nodded. "What about the prefab shelters and food supplies? Half the cargo compartments are on fire. We managed to save some emergency rations and basic medical supplies, but not enough for long-term survival." As the adults talked, Tommy slipped away from the group. His head still hurt, but he was curious about this new world. The air smelled different than Earth air. It was cleaner somehow, with hints of strange flowers. The grass under his feet was purple instead of green. In the distance, thick forests covered rolling hills. Tommy had never seen trees so tall. Their leaves were silver and blue, rustling in the alien breeze. Strange bird-like creatures flew between the branches, making musical sounds he had never heard before. Tommy walked toward the forest edge, drawn by the mysterious sounds and sights. Behind him, the adults were too busy with rescue efforts to notice one small boy wandering away. The forest was even more amazing up close. Vines as thick as his arm hung from the giant trees. Flowers the size of dinner plates grew along the forest floor, glowing with soft blue light. Small creatures scurried through the underbrush, but they looked more like lizards than the squirrels he knew from Earth. Tommy followed a narrow animal path deeper into the woods. Everything was so beautiful and strange. He forgot about the crash, forgot about his injured head, forgot about staying close to his mother. After walking for 20 minutes, Tommy realized he was lost. The sounds from the crash site had faded away completely. He could no longer see the smoke from the burning ship. Tall trees surrounded him on all sides, their silver leaves blocking most of the sunlight. "Mom," Tommy called out. His voice seemed small in the vast forest. "Mom, where are you?" Only silence answered him. Tommy tried to retrace his steps, but all the trees looked the same. The animal path had branched several times, and he could not remember which direction he had come from. Panic began to rise in his chest. Then he heard something that made his blood freeze. A low, growling sound echoed through the trees. It was deep and menacing, unlike anything he had ever heard. Whatever was making that sound was big, very big. Tommy looked around frantically for somewhere to hide. The growling came again, closer this time. Heavy footsteps crashed through the underbrush, heading straight for him. Through the trees, Tommy saw golden eyes watching him. They were the size of dinner plates, set in a massive reptilian head. The creature stepped into a patch of sunlight, and Tommy gasped. It stood 12 feet tall on powerful hind legs. Its body was covered in dark green scales that looked harder than armor. Razor-sharp claws extended from its hands and feet. Its mouth was full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. This was Kethvar, the apex hunter of Kepler 442b. The massive predator studied the small human child with intelligent eyes. Tommy stood frozen with terror, but something inside him refused to run. Instead, he slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out an emergency food bar. With trembling hands, Tommy held out the food toward the deadly creature. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said in a shaky voice. "Are you hungry?" Kethvar stared at the small human child for a long moment. In all his years as the greatest hunter on this world, he had never seen prey behave like this. Most creatures ran when they saw him. Others tried to fight. This tiny being did neither. The boy stood his ground, holding out food with shaking hands. His fear was obvious, but he did not flee. This puzzled Kethvar greatly. The massive predator sniffed the air around Tommy. The humans smelled different from any creature on this planet. There was no aggression in his scent, no territorial challenge, only fear mixed with something else, something Kethvar could not identify. Slowly, carefully, Kethvar reached out with one clawed hand. He took the food bar from Tommy's outstretched palm. The boy flinched but did not pull away. Kethvar examined the strange food. It smelled artificial but not poisonous. He bit into it and tasted flavors he had never experienced. It was not unpleasant. Tommy watched the giant creature eat his. "Emergency ration. My name is Tommy," he said quietly. "What's your name?" Kethvar tilted his massive head. The sounds the child made were unlike any animal communication he knew, but there was pattern in them, intelligence. This was language the apex hunter made. A low rumbling sound deep in his throat. It was his name in the ancient Vorthak tongue. Tommy tried to copy the sound but failed. His small human throat could not make the deep, complex growl. "I can't say that," Tommy said. "Can I call you something else?" This amused Kethvar. Prey did not usually name their predators. He made another sound, simpler this time. "Keth," Tommy repeated, getting closer to the actual pronunciation. "Keth," the predator nodded slightly. It was close enough. Over the next several hours, Kethvar watched Tommy carefully. The child was clearly lost and afraid, but he showed remarkable adaptability. When Tommy grew thirsty, he found a stream by listening for the sound of running water. When he grew hungry again, he carefully tasted small amounts of various plants before eating them. This behavior fascinated Kethvar. Most young creatures on his world relied completely on their parents for survival. This human child used intelligence and caution to stay alive on his own. As the day wore on, Kethvar began to test Tommy in small ways. When they came to a fallen log blocking their path, Kethvar waited to see what the boy would do. Tommy studied the obstacle, then climbed over it using handholds in the bark. When they encountered a patch of thorny vines, Tommy picked up a stick and used it to push the thorns aside, creating a safe passage. When a small predator approached them, Tommy climbed onto Kethvar's back without being told. He had recognized the danger and sought protection from the larger, stronger creature. Each test impressed Kethvar more. This small human showed the kind of quick thinking that kept creatures alive in the wild. He used tools. He solved problems. He understood when to be brave and when to seek help. As night fell, Tommy gathered dry leaves and small branches. Using 2 stones, he created sparks and started a small fire. Kethvar had seen fire before, but he had never seen a creature create it from nothing. The boy sat by his fire, sharing another food bar with the massive predator. "Are you going to eat me?" Tommy asked in his simple, direct way. Kethvar considered this question seriously. In his culture, strength determined everything. The strong survived, and the weak became food. But this human child had shown strength of a different kind. Not physical strength, but mental strength. Cleverness, adaptability. These were traits the Vorthak respected above all others. Kethvar shook his great head. No, he would not eat this remarkable little creature. The next morning brought new tests. Kethvar led Tommy through increasingly difficult terrain. When they came to a swift-moving river, Tommy studied the current and the rocks carefully. Instead of trying to swim across, he found a fallen tree upstream that formed a natural bridge. When they climbed a steep hillside, Tommy used his small size to his advantage. He could fit through narrow spaces between rocks that Kethvar had to go around. Several times, Tommy found easier paths that the larger creature had missed. Most impressive was how quickly Tommy learned to read Kethvar's body language. When the predator's ears flattened against his head, Tommy knew danger was near. When Kethvar crouched low, Tommy copied him and stayed quiet. When the great hunter moved in a certain way, Tommy understood it meant they should change direction. On the second day, they encountered other Vorthak. 2 younger hunters approached through the forest, drawn by Kethvar's scent. They saw Tommy and immediately prepared to attack. To them, the human was simply prey. But Kethvar stepped protectively in front of the boy. He made a series of growls and roars that Tommy did not understand. The 2 younger Vorthak looked confused and angry. They argued with Kethvar in their rumbling language. Tommy watched the exchange carefully. He could tell the other creatures wanted to hurt him, but Kethvar was protecting him. The boy remained calm and still, not wanting to cause more problems. Finally, the 2 younger Vorthak backed away. They looked at Tommy with puzzled expressions before disappearing back into the forest. "Thank you," Tommy said simply. Kethvar looked down at the small human. In that moment, something changed between them. The boy had passed every test. He had shown courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Most importantly, he had earned Kethvar's respect. Meanwhile, back at the crash site, Rebecca was going out of her mind with worry. Search teams had been looking for Tommy for 2 days without success. The alien forest was too dense and dangerous for the few surviving colonists to search effectively. "We have to find him," Rebecca told Captain Hayes. "He's just a little boy. He can't survive out there alone." Captain Hayes looked tired and grim. "We're doing everything we can, Rebecca, but we've lost contact with 3 search teams already. This planet is more dangerous than we thought." Dr. Webb approached with his medical scanner in hand. "I'm picking up human life signs about 5 miles northeast of here. But there's something else with them. Something big." Rebecca felt her heart skip a beat. "How big?" Webb checked his readings again. "Bigger than anything in our database. Whatever it is, it's right next to your son." Deep in the forest, Tommy was learning his first words in the Vorthak language. Kethvar taught him the sounds for water, food, and danger. The boy practiced each word carefully, his young mind absorbing the alien sounds. For the first time in his long life, Kethvar was teaching instead of hunting, and he found that he enjoyed it very much. Part 3. The bond formed 2 weeks had passed since Tommy first met Kethvar. The boy had learned to move quietly through the forest, copying the way the great hunter placed his feet. He could identify dangerous plants by their smell and knew which fruits were safe to eat. Most importantly, Tommy had learned to trust Kethvar completely. The massive predator had become more than a protector. He was a teacher, showing Tommy how to survive in this dangerous world. Kethvar taught him to read the signs of coming storms by watching how certain birds flew. He showed him which rocks held the clearest water and which caves offered the best shelter. Tommy's small human brain absorbed everything quickly. He made simple tools from sticks and stones, creating spears for fishing and containers for carrying water. Kethvar watched with growing amazement as the boy found solutions to problems that even adult Vorthak struggled with. When they needed to cross a deep ravine, Tommy wove vines together to make a rope. When they faced a wall of thorny bushes, he used smoke from a small fire to drive away the stinging insects that lived inside them. When food became scarce, he showed Kethvar how to dig for roots that the predator had never known were edible. The boy's creativity fascinated Kethvar. Humans, he realized, did not rely on strength or natural weapons. Instead, they used their minds to overcome obstacles. This was a completely new way of thinking for the apex hunter. In return, Tommy learned the complex social rules of Vorthak society. He discovered that Kethvar was not just any hunter, but the most respected predator in this entire region. Other creatures feared and avoided him. Even other Vorthak showed him respect by keeping their distance. Tommy also learned that the Vorthak had a complicated language full of different growls, roars, and body movements. Each sound meant something specific. A low rumble meant contentment. A sharp bark meant warning. The position of ears and tail showed emotions, just like facial expressions did for humans. The boy practiced these sounds and movements every day. His human throat could not make all the Vorthak sounds perfectly, but he got close enough to communicate basic ideas. On the 15th day, their peaceful routine was shattered. Tommy and Kethvar were resting near a waterfall when they heard a terrible screaming sound from above. A massive creature called a thornwing had appeared in the sky. It looked like a cross between a dragon and a giant bat, with wings that stretched 40 feet across. Thornwings were one of the few creatures on the planet that could threaten an adult Vorthak. They were fiercely territorial and would attack anything that entered their hunting grounds. The thornwing dove toward them with its claws extended. Kethvar pushed Tommy behind a large boulder and prepared to fight. The 2 massive creatures collided in midair with tremendous force. Kethvar was a skilled fighter, but the Thornwing had the advantage of flight. It could attack from above and retreat before the Vorthak could strike back. Its razor-sharp claws raked across Kethvar's armored hide, drawing blood. Tommy watched in horror as his protector battled for his life. The Thornwing was winning. Each attack left new wounds on Kethvar's body. The great hunter was slowing down, losing strength from blood loss. Then the Thornwing made a mistake. It flew too low, trying to grab Kethvar's head with its talons. The Vorthak caught the creature's wing in his powerful jaws and dragged it to the ground. The two beasts rolled across the rocky ground, clawing and biting. But the Thornwing's wing was badly damaged. It could no longer fly away to safety. Kethvar delivered the killing blow with his massive claws, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Deep gashes covered his body. One wound on his side was particularly serious, bleeding heavily. The great hunter collapsed beside the dead Thornwing. His breathing was labored and painful. Tommy ran to Kethvar's side. The boy had learned basic first aid from his mother, but treating a 12-foot reptilian predator was very different from helping injured humans. "Hold still," Tommy said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm going to help you." Tommy examined the wounds carefully. The worst injury was a deep cut that ran from Kethvar's shoulder to his hip. It needed to be cleaned and bandaged quickly, or the great hunter would bleed to death. The boy knew that certain plants in the forest had healing properties. His mother had taught him about medicinal herbs on Earth, and he had observed which plants the local animals used when they were injured. There was one problem. The healing plants grew in narrow cracks high up on the cliff face. The spaces were too small for Kethvar to reach, but perfect for a human child. Tommy looked up at the dangerous climb. The rocks were slippery from the waterfall's spray. One wrong move would send him falling to his death. But Kethvar needed those plants to survive. "I have to get something to help you," Tommy told the wounded hunter. "Stay here and don't move." Tommy began climbing the wet rocks. His small fingers found handholds that would have been impossible for larger creatures. He moved slowly and carefully, testing each grip before putting his full weight on it. Kethvar watched through pain-filled eyes as the small human risked his life to gather healing plants. No creature had ever done such a thing for him. In Vorthak society, the wounded were usually left to heal on their own or die trying. Tommy reached the medicinal plants and carefully picked the ones he needed. The climb down was even more dangerous because he had to use one hand to carry the plants. But he made it safely to the ground. Working quickly, Tommy chewed the healing leaves into a paste, just as he had seen his mother prepare poultices for minor injuries. He cleaned Kethvar's wounds with fresh water from the stream, then applied the plant medicine. The boy tore strips of cloth from his own shirt to make bandages. He wrapped the worst wounds as tightly as he could, trying to stop the bleeding. For 3 days, Tommy cared for the injured predator. He brought water and food. He changed the bandages. He sat beside Kethvar during the long, painful nights, offering what comfort he could. On the 4th day, Kethvar was strong enough to stand. The wounds were healing well, thanks to Tommy's quick thinking and brave actions. The great hunter looked down at the small human who had saved his life. In Vorthak culture, a life debt was the most sacred bond possible. It could never be repaid or forgotten, but this was more than a life debt. Tommy had shown courage, loyalty, and selfless love. These were the qualities that Vorthak parents hoped to find in their own offspring. Kethvar made a decision that no member of his species had ever made before. He would adopt this human child as his own son. That evening, under the light of 2 alien moons, Kethvar performed the ancient ritual of adoption. He placed his massive clawed hand on Tommy's small head and spoke the ceremonial words in the old Vorthak language. Tommy did not understand all the words, but he felt their importance. Something fundamental had changed between them. They were no longer just friends or protector and protected. They were family. Far away at the crash site, Rebecca stared into the dark forest and whispered her son's name. She had not given up hope, but each passing day made his survival seem less likely. She had no way of knowing that Tommy was not just alive, but thriving under the care of the most dangerous predator on the planet. Her little boy had found a new father among the stars. 3 weeks after the adoption ceremony, Tommy heard familiar sounds in the distance. Human voices calling his name, the sound of heavy boots crushing through the underbrush. His rescue team had finally found their trail. Tommy looked at Kethvar with mixed emotions. Part of him missed his mother terribly and wanted to see her again. But another part of him was afraid. He knew that humans and Vorthak were natural enemies. His mother would not understand the bond he shared with his adoptive father. Kethvar sensed the boy's distress. The great hunter had also heard the approaching humans. His keen senses told him there were at least a dozen of them, and several carried weapons designed for killing large predators. "Tommy! Tommy! Where are you?" Rebecca's voice echoed through the forest. The desperation and love in her call made the boy's heart ache. Tommy stood up from their resting spot beside a small stream. "That's my mother," he told Kethvar in the mixture of English and Vorthak they now used to communicate. "I have to see her." Kethvar nodded but remained alert. He would protect his adopted son from any threat, even if that threat came from the boy's own species. Tommy walked toward the voices with Kethvar following silently behind. The boy emerged from the thick trees into a small clearing where he could see the search team clearly. Rebecca was there, along with Captain Hayes and 6 Colonial Marines in full combat armor. Dr. Webb carried his medical scanner, and Jake Morrison led the group with a military rifle in his hands. "Mom!" Tommy called out. Rebecca spun around at the sound of her son's voice. When she saw him, tears of joy and relief streamed down her face. "Tommy! Oh my God, Tommy!" She ran toward him with her arms outstretched, but then she stopped suddenly. Her face went pale with terror. Kethvar had stepped out of the forest behind. "Tommy!" The massive predator stood protectively over the boy, his golden eyes scanning the armed humans for signs of threat. "Get away from my son!" Rebecca screamed. "Get away from him right now!" The Marines immediately raised their weapons, aiming at Kethvar's head and chest. Jake Morrison shouted orders. "Target acquired! Prepare to fire!" No. Tommy stepped between the guns and Kethvar. "Don't hurt him. He's my friend." "Tommy, get away from that thing," Captain Hayes ordered. "Move away slowly and come to us." "He's not a thing," Tommy said firmly. "His name is Kethvar, and he saved my life. He's been taking care of me." Rebecca stared at her son in horror. The boy looked healthy and strong, but he was defending a creature that could kill him with one swipe of its claws. Had the monster somehow brainwashed her child? "Sweetheart, you don't understand," Rebecca said, trying to keep her voice calm. "That creature is dangerous. It's a predator. It's probably just keeping you alive to eat you later." Tommy's face flushed with anger. "You don't know anything about him. Kethvar is my family now. He adopted me using the old ceremonies. He would never hurt me." Dr. Webb stepped forward with his scanner active. "Rebecca, the boy shows no signs of physical abuse or psychological manipulation, but he's clearly formed an attachment to the creature." "It's called Stockholm Syndrome," Jake Morrison said grimly. "Hostages sometimes bond with their captors. We need to separate them immediately." "I'm not a hostage," Tommy shouted. "Kethvar is my father now." These words hit Rebecca like a physical blow. "I'm your mother, Tommy. I'm your family, not that monster." Behind Tommy, Kethvar listened to the exchange with growing alarm. He could not understand the human words, but their tone was clearly hostile. The armed humans were preparing to attack him and take his adopted son away. In Vorthak culture, Stealing another hunter's offspring was an act of war. "Tommy, come here right now," Rebecca demanded. "We're going home." "This is my home now," Tommy replied. He turned to face Kethvar and spoke in the Vorthak language. "These are my birth family. They want to take me away from you." Kethvar's response was a low, menacing growl. The sound made all the humans take a step backward. "He says he won't let you take me," Tommy translated. "In his culture, adoption bonds are sacred. You can't just break them." Captain Hayes had heard enough. "Morrison, we're not negotiating with an alien predator. Tranquilize the creature and extract the boy." Jake Morrison nodded and switched his rifle to tranquilizer rounds. "Moving to capture the target." But Kethvar was no ordinary prey. He had survived as an apex predator for decades by reading danger signals perfectly. The moment Morrison adjusted, his weapon, Kethvar, moved. The great hunter leaped forward with lightning speed. His massive claws struck Morrison's rifle, sending it flying. Before the Marine could draw his sidearm, Kethvar's other hand caught him around the throat. "Don't hurt him!" Tommy screamed, but it was too late. Kethvar squeezed once, and Jake Morrison's neck snapped. The Marine fell to the ground, dead. The other Marines opened fire immediately. Their bullets bounced off Kethvar's armored hide like raindrops. The predator charged into their midst, his claws cutting through their body armor like paper. 2 more Marines died before Captain Hayes ordered a retreat. "Fall back! Fall back! Get to the extraction point!" Rebecca grabbed Tommy's arm and tried to pull him away from the battle. "Come on! We have to run!" But Tommy pulled free and ran toward Kethvar. "Stop fighting! Please stop!" The boy's voice cut through the chaos. Kethvar immediately stopped his attack and moved to shield Tommy from the remaining humans. "This is madness," Dr. Webb said, his hands shaking as he watched 3 of their companions' bodies lying in the clearing. "The creature killed them too. Protect the boy." "Because you tried to hurt him first," Tommy cried. "I told you he was my family." Captain Hayes pointed her weapon at Kethvar, but did not fire. She knew her bullets would not penetrate his hide, and shooting would only provoke another attack. "Tommy, look around you," she said desperately. "Look what your friend just did. He's a killer." Tommy looked at the dead Marines, then at his human family, then at Kethvar. Everyone he loved was angry and afraid. The 2 parts of his life were destroying each other. "This is all wrong," Tommy said quietly. Then he turned and ran back into the forest. "Tommy, wait!" Rebecca called after him, but the boy was already gone, disappearing into the thick alien trees. Behind him, 2 families faced each other across a clearing stained with blood, neither understanding how much they both loved the same small child. Kethvar looked at the humans one more time, memorizing their scents and faces. Then he followed, his adopted son into the wilderness. The rescue had become a disaster, and Tommy was lost once again. Tommy ran through the forest with tears streaming down his face. Behind him, he could hear both his mother calling his name and Kethvar's heavy footsteps following him. Everyone he loved was trying to protect him, but they were hurting each other instead. The boy found a hollow log and crawled inside to hide. He did not want to face either family right now. Everything had gone terribly wrong. Kethvar found him first. The great hunter lay down beside the log and made soft, rumbling sounds of comfort. Tommy crawled out and leaned against his adoptive father's warm side. "I don't know what to do," Tommy said sadly. "My birth mother thinks you're a monster. People think humans are just food. But you're both my family." 20 minutes later, Rebecca appeared in the small clearing. She moved slowly, her hands empty and visible. Dr. Webb followed behind her, also unarmed. "Tommy, please," Rebecca said softly. "Just talk to me. Help me understand." Kethvar tensed when he saw the humans, but Tommy placed a calming hand on the predator's massive arm. "It's okay, she's my mother." Rebecca sat down carefully, keeping her distance from Kethvar. "Tell me about him, sweetheart. Help me see what you see." For the next hour, Tommy explained everything that had happened. He told his mother how Kethvar had protected him from other predators, how the great hunter had taught him to survive in the alien wilderness, how they had learned to communicate and trust each other. Most importantly, Tommy described how he had saved Kethvar's life after the fight with the Thornwing. "He was dying, Mom. I had to help him. That's when everything changed between us." Dr. Webb listened with growing amazement. "Rebecca, what your son is describing is unprecedented. True interspecies adoption has never been documented before." Rebecca looked at Kethvar with new eyes. The massive predator sat perfectly still, allowing her to examine him closely. His golden eyes showed intelligence and awareness. When Tommy spoke, Kethvar tilted his head to listen, clearly understanding at least some of the human words. "He really does care about you, doesn't he?" Rebecca said quietly. "More than anything," Tommy replied. "And I care about him too." Their conversation was interrupted by a sound from the sky, a deep thrumming noise that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. All three beings looked up to see massive black ships descending through the atmosphere. "What are those?" Tommy asked. Dr. Webb checked his scanner and went pale. "Unknown vessels, at least 50 of them. They're heading for the crash site." Rebecca activated her emergency communicator. "Captain Hayes, do you see the ships?" Hayes's voice crackled back with static and fear. "We see them. They're not human ships. Repeat, they are not human vessels." The black ships landed around the human colony with mechanical precision. They were smooth and featureless, like drops of liquid metal that had hardened into ship shapes. No doors or windows were visible anywhere on their hulls. Then the ships began to open. Creatures poured out. That made even Kethvar look small. They stood 15 feet tall on 6 legs that ended in razor-sharp points. Their bodies were covered in black, chitinous armor. Most terrifying of all, they had no faces, just smooth, blank surfaces where heads should be. "Devourers," Dr. Webb whispered, reading his scanner in horror. "The database has limited information, but they're a nomadic species. They strip entire worlds of all biological matter. The Devourers moved with terrible efficiency. They spread across the landscape, setting up strange machines that began pulling plants out of the ground and animals out of their hiding places. Everything living was being harvested. At the crash site, the remaining human colonists tried to fight back. Their weapons had no effect on the Devourers' armor. Captain Hayes and her surviving Marines were quickly overwhelmed. "We have to help." "Them," Rebecca said. But even as she spoke, more Devourers were approaching their location. The creatures moved through the forest like a dark wave, consuming everything in their path. Kethvar stood up and made a series of complex calls, deep, resonant sounds that carried for miles through the alien forest. "What is he doing?" Rebecca asked. "Calling his people," Tommy replied. "He's warning them about the Devourers." Within minutes, other Vorthak began appearing. They emerged from the forest like living shadows, their predatory instincts alerting them to the new threat. Soon, a dozen of the apex hunters surrounded Tommy's small group. The other Vorthak looked at the humans with suspicion and hunger, but Kethvar stood protectively between them and his adopted family. Dr. Webb activated his translation device and managed to convert some basic words into Vorthak sounds. "Danger," he said in their language. "Common enemy. Work together." The Vorthak understood the concept of common enemies. When faced with a threat to their territory, even traditional enemies could become temporary allies. As the Devourers drew closer, Rebecca made a difficult decision. She had spent her career studying alien species and their technologies. She knew that neither humans nor Vorthak could defeat the Devourers alone. "Tommy," she said, "can you translate for us? We need to work together if any of us are going to survive." Tommy nodded eagerly. He spoke to Kethvar in the Vorthak language, explaining his mother's words. Then he turned to the other hunters and repeated the message. The Vorthak discussed the situation in their growling tongue. Tommy listened carefully and translated for the humans. They say the Devourers have come to their world before, long ago, in the time of their ancestors. The old stories tell how they barely survived by hiding in the deep caves. Hiding won't work this time, Rebecca said. The Devourers have better technology now. They'll find every cave on the planet. Tommy relayed her words to the Vorthak. Their leader, an ancient female named Sithara, responded with a series of sharp barks. She says fighting is the only option, Tommy translated. But the Devourers are too strong. Many will die. Dr. Webb studied his scanner readings. The Devourers have a weakness. Their armor is strong, but their machines are more vulnerable. If we could disable their harvesting equipment, they might retreat to find easier prey. Rebecca felt a spark of hope. Human technology for long-range attacks combined with Vorthak hunting skills for close combat. It might actually work. Tommy explained the plan to both groups. The Vorthak would use their knowledge of the terrain to set ambushes. The humans would provide technical support and strategic coordination. For the first time in the history of both species, humans and Vorthak would fight side by side. As the Devourers approached through the forest, the unlikely alliance prepared for the battle of their lives. Tommy stood between his two families, no longer torn between them, but finally uniting them against a common threat. The boy who had survived alone in an alien wilderness was about to become the bridge between two worlds. The battle against the Devourers began at dawn. Rebecca and Dr. Webb had worked through the night with the surviving human colonists to modify their remaining weapons. They created electromagnetic pulse devices from the ship's navigation equipment. These EMP weapons could disable the Devourers' harvesting machines, but they had to be placed at close range. The Vorthak would handle the close combat. Kethvar led 12 of his finest hunters through the forest toward the first group of Devourers. Tommy rode on his adoptive father's back, serving as the communication link between the two species. 3 machines ahead, Tommy whispered in Vorthak, relaying information from Dr. Webb's scanner. 6 Devourers guarding them. The Vorthak spread out silently, using their natural camouflage and hunting instincts to approach undetected. The Devourers might be technologically advanced, but they had no experience fighting coordinated predators who knew their own territory perfectly. Kethvar struck first. He leaped from the trees above, his massive claws tearing through the armor plates on a Devourer's back. The alien creature collapsed with a sound like breaking glass. The other Vorthak attacked simultaneously from different directions. Their surprise assault brought down 3 more Devourers before the remaining creatures could respond. While the Vorthak fought, Tommy slipped off Kethvar's back and ran to the harvesting machines. He placed the EMP devices exactly where Dr. Webb had shown him. The machines sparked and went silent. "First target destroyed," Tommy reported through his communicator. "Moving to target 2. The pattern repeated throughout the morning. The Vorthak would ambush the Devourer guards while Tommy disabled their equipment. Rebecca coordinated the attacks from a safe distance, using her scientific knowledge to identify the most important targets. But the Devourers adapted quickly to the new threat. They began sending larger groups to guard their machines. They also started hunting the Vorthak directly, trying to eliminate the predators before they could attack. During the assault on the 4th target, everything went wrong. The Devourers had set a trap. When Kethvar and his hunters approached what looked like a lightly guarded harvesting site, 30 Devourers emerged from hidden positions. The battle was fierce and terrible. Vorthak claws clashed against Devourer armor. Alien weapons fired. Streams of energy that could cut through trees. The forest became a war zone. Kethvar fought with the fury of a parent protecting his child. His massive frame shrugged off energy blasts that would have killed smaller creatures. But even his incredible strength had limits. A devourer's weapon struck him in the chest, burning through his armored hide. Kethvar stumbled but kept fighting. Another blast hit his leg, and he fell to one knee. Tommy saw his adoptive father in danger and made a choice that would have terrified his mother. The boy grabbed one of the fallen devourer's weapons and pointed it at the creature attacking Kethvar. "Leave my dad alone!" Tommy shouted as he fired. The energy beam struck the devourer, center mass dropping it instantly. Tommy had never used an alien weapon before, but desperation and love had guided his aim perfectly. Other Vorthak saw the small human child defending their greatest hunter. It was an act of courage that earned their immediate respect. They fought, harder, inspired by Tommy's bravery. The tide of battle turned. The devourers, faced with losses they had not expected, began to retreat. Their harvesting operation was failing, and this world was proving more trouble than it was worth. By sunset, the last devourer ship lifted off from the planet's surface. The alien harvesters had decided to find easier prey elsewhere, but the victory came at a cost. Several Vorthak had been killed in the fighting. Kethavar's injuries were serious, and Dr. Webb worked frantically to treat burns that no human doctor had ever seen before. As Tommy helped bandage his adoptive father's wounds, Rebecca finally understood what her son had been trying to tell her. The bond between Tommy and Kethvar was not about predator and prey, it was about family. "I'm sorry," Rebecca said to Kethvar, speaking slowly so Tommy could translate. "I was wrong about you. Thank you for protecting my son." Kethvar's response was a gentle rumble that needed no translation. He understood. Over the following weeks, an extraordinary thing happened. The human colonists and the Vorthak began to work together regularly. They had learned that cooperation made both groups stronger. The humans shared their technology and scientific knowledge. They taught the Vorthak about medicine, agriculture, and engineering. In return, the Vorthak shared their deep understanding of the planet's ecology and their incredible survival skills. Tommy became the bridge between the two species. He was fluent in both languages and understood both cultures. The boy spent his days learning from human teachers and his evenings hunting with Vorthak instructors. Rebecca initially worried that this arrangement would confuse her son, but she soon realized the opposite was true. Tommy was thriving with the best of both worlds. The boy learned human mathematics and science, then applied that knowledge to improve Vorthak hunting techniques. He studied Vorthak pack dynamics and social structures, then helped human leaders understand how to communicate more effectively with their new allies. Captain Hayes, who had lost 3 Marines in the first disastrous encounter, gradually came to respect the Vorthak. She worked with Sithara, the ancient female hunter, to establish joint patrols that protected both human settlements and Vorthak territories. Dr. Webb was fascinated by Vorthak biology and spent months studying their incredible healing abilities. In return, he taught them about human medicine and anatomy. 6 months after the Devourer attack, the first joint human Vorthak settlement was established near a river that provided fresh water for both species. Tommy helped design buildings that worked for both human families and Vorthak pack structures. One evening, as 2 alien suns set over their new home, Tommy sat between his 2 families. Rebecca worked on her scientific reports, while Kethvar groomed his scales after a successful hunt. "Mom," Tommy said, "do you think other humans and aliens could be friends like we are?" Rebecca looked at her son, then at the massive predator who had become an unlikely part of their family. "I think you've shown us that anything is possible, sweetheart. Family isn't just about what species you are. It's about who you choose to love and protect." Kethvar rumbled in agreement, understanding more human words every day. Tommy smiled and leaned against both his parents. The boy who had been lost in an alien forest had found something better than rescue. He had found a way to bring 2 worlds together. As night fell over the colony, human children played games with young Vorthak in the settlement's central plaza. Their laughter and playful growls mixed together in a sound that had never been heard before on any world. It was the sound of a new kind of family being born among the stars. In his weekly report to Earth, Dr. Webb wrote, "The colony has exceeded all expectations. We have formed an unprecedented alliance with the native species. Recommend immediate expansion of the cultural exchange program. Our children are learning that the universe is full of friends we simply haven't met yet." Tommy read the report over his mother's shoulder and nodded approvingly. He was already planning lessons to teach the next group of human colonists how to speak Vorthak. After all, every family needed to learn how to talk to each other.